Hello and welcome to another episode of Wanna Be Entrepreneur, the podcast about what's really like to bootstrap a company. And today I have a new person in the business, kind of a newbie in bootstrapping. His name is Pieter Levels. What's up, Peter? Everything good with
What's
you?
up, man? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. I think obviously everyone that is listening to this knows Peter is kind of the person that started bootstrapping. We were just chatting about it off the record, and he just said that now bootstrapping is kind of mainstream and everyone speaks about it. But when he first started, everyone was more into VC and startups and Shark Tank, and not a lot of people were actually speaking about bootstrapping. So he's the creator of Nomad List, Remote OK, Rebase.co, and I guess another 1,000 cool projects. And yeah, super excited to have a chat with you. And I guess we can speak a little bit about Rebase, about Portugal, about bootstrapping. I have a lot of questions. So super excited.
Yeah, me too.
I always ask this to the people I'm interviewing to introduce themselves in their own words. If you don't mind, would you do
Yeah,
that?
sure. Yeah, so my name is Pieter Levels. I'm originally from Holland, Amsterdam, kind of. I wasn't born there, but I lived there a lot, and everybody knows Amsterdam, so it's an easy place to say,
Yeah, I
Um,
love the
and
city, man. It's such a cool city.
yeah, it's beautiful, man. Especially in the summer, it's amazing. And so I make kind of like startups, but like not like really like $1 billion startups, but I mean $1 million startups is kind of good, and they're kind of indie, so I don't really raise funding for them. I just make it kind of myself. I write code, I design, I make the logo, I do the marketing, I do pretty much everything. I make the database, I make the code, um, and I made like a lot of projects, like over like 70 projects, and a few became successful, like Nomad List and Remote OK, and recently, like you said, Rebase. And most of my projects now are about kind of like remote work, um, and it's kind of like my mission is to promote the freedom of global movement that's enabled by remote work. And yeah, that's kind of like what I live for. Like that's what I want to do, and that's what I did for the last, I guess, almost like 8 years now, I think.
So why this motto? Why having this mission of allowing everyone to travel freely?
I think it's something that like when I grew up, I didn't travel like around the whole world. It was like the first time I really went outside. Like Europe was in 2009. I
Mm-hmm.
studied business administration in Amsterdam, and they had a program like an exchange program, like many people do it these days.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I went to Korea and I studied in Seoul at Korea University. That's the name of the university. And it was like life changing. I was like, wow, I'm on the other side of the world, and like everybody, I think I was like scared of outside Europe and traveling and stuff and moving abroad. It was really scary. I was like, what was going to happen? Is it safe and stuff?
Especially to a different continent, right?
Oh,
So
dude, 100%, yeah.
yeah,
And it was so strange. It was such a culture shock. Like arriving, we flew there with two Dutch classmates who Hasse and Sam, and still best friends. And we arrived there at the airport, and flying is already kind of interesting, but then like arriving in a place
yeah,
in the middle of the night, taking the bus, and we had no idea about how to get to our hotel or our hostel. I think it was even at a shared like 6 people dorm, and we were just in a random neighborhood in Seoul, and with neon lights everywhere. Like Asia, all these neon lights,
yeah, yeah,
like just like in Japan. And we were so hungry, and there was only like the street food, so we eat these like rice cakes in red sauce, and
wow.
it was like super spicy, and we almost threw up because it was just burning our throat so much. And then we ended up in some bar called the Sam bar, because Sam means tree. And we started drinking and asking them if they could help us find our way to our home, and they did. And so we drank a lot there, and then we ended up in our hostel that night. And I don't know, that first night was already like, this is so crazy, other side of the world, so much
Yeah,
adventures and stuff. And that kind of expanded my whole view on like the world, and everybody was really nice. Like everybody was so nice to
Yeah.
us outside, and
Europe is interesting because it's somehow like its own country, like a big country, because the culture is kind of similar, right?
yeah, for
But
sure.
the moment you go, for instance, to Asia, and my only experience in Asia was actually in India, and because when I moved to Germany, I'm from Portugal, working in Germany for 6 years. I met a lot of people from India, and I met people from all over the world. So this was really really nice to get to know, other cultures. But Asia and India, it's such a different way of living. It's so different that you either love it or you hate it. And
Yeah,
it's, yeah, it was super addictive, and I just want to go back because this was so interesting.
yeah, totally, man. Yeah, it's also relative, right? Like if you grow up in Asia, then you have the same vibe that that we have about Asia as with Europe. Like a lot of people here are like dreaming about Europe, and
Right.
they're like obsessed about Europe. And I think it's kind of similar thing. It's just like you grew up in a culture and then you go to another culture, and it's just like it's so exhilarating because everything is different,
Yeah.
and it's you learn so much, and you're kind of also like you're forced to like go outside and talk to people and just to survive because you need to eat, right? You
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
somehow order food or buy
Exactly.
food, and it it
But
it forces you out of your comfort zone.
are you the kind of person that likes to fit in, or to kind of bring your culture? I feel that when you're traveling, there's two kinds of people. People that love to be tourists, and they say like, yeah, we have this a lot in Portugal, by the way. And sometimes with my family this happens. I'm traveling with my family, and we are in a beautiful beach, and they say like, yeah, we also have this in Portugal. Try to bring the culture there. And then there's other people like me that are like, I don't want anyone to know that I'm a tourist, and I want to just fit in and to learn from them. Which kind of person are you?
Well, it's difficult to not look like a tourist because I'm blonde and white,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's not
Yeah.
people in Asia. But uh, no, I think it's important that you try to uh, you know match the culture, the local culture a little bit. Like for example, in Asia, you need to be much more polite, and you need to be friendly, and to be talk softer because you know
Yeah.
it's like the closer you get to the United States of America, the higher the decibel of voice. Everywhere you go, you hear Americans always like "Yeah, blah, blah, blah." It's just so loud, and then Europe is somewhere in the middle, and then Asia is just speaks often, So you need to match the culture, and you need to be respectful, and then I mean, of course, you bring your own culture because that's you, and it's always kind of like a mix of, with COVID it's very different because it's hard to now meet people, but before COVID it's like a mix of generally you hang with locals and you hang with other foreigners in a place,
Right.
and there's exceptions to that, but there's also like places like Korea don't have a lot of foreigners living there, so you hang more with locals. Places like Bali, Canggu, I mean that's definitely like kind of like a resort town, so
Yeah.
it's mostly foreigners living there, and the restaurants are ran by locals, and it's good the money flows to locals. It's probably harder to hang with locals there because it's more of a resort town, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's
Gotcha.
always a mix, and um, yeah, I mean, everybody should do what they want to do, and if you want to be a tourist, that's fine too.
When you go back to and visit your friends back home, people that didn't travel, do you see like that there is a difference in perspectives? Can you still identify with your friends back home?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, honestly, the friends I had when I graduated are very different than the friends I have now. Like when I graduated university and then started traveling and living abroad are very different, and I still
Right.
love those old friends. I don't talk to them a lot. I talk to the friends that kind of went the same way as me, like also went kind of like traveling and remote work, and I mean, I'd love to have a more diverse friend group, but it is difficult because um, you change when you go abroad, and people that stay in their own country also change, right? And
Right.
people become more set in their ways, and
It's funny to see that normally, this is my experience as an expat. The first like 1 or 2 years, it seems that every time you go back home, nothing changed, and you changed
yeah,
so much.
Yeah.
But then after like 3 4 years, I started noticing this. It means that it seems that like they moved on. They have
Yeah.
their life, and then I feel, and it's an interesting thing now that I returned, because I have a lot of friends that I met as an expat, and I really identify myself with them. And now I'm back, and my friends here, it's hard to reconnect. Even though I like them, but
No, it really sucks because you had a lot of shared history, and there's nothing negative about them. There's also nothing negative about us, and I think it's natural that the people in your life change throughout your life, and it's not a
yeah,
bad thing. It's just it's it's a real challenge to have a very diverse friend group. And like honestly, I think the people that go abroad the first time and or go nomad and stuff, like the first 2 3 years, they're like insufferable. That's the word. Like they cannot stop talking about, oh my god,
yeah,
everything's amazing abroad, and oh my god, I went to Asia and I went to Latin America and blah blah blah. So that's really annoying for people that
yes,
stay at home. But then it's also annoying because I do think nomads and people abroad, they get over it and they're like, okay, it's not better or worse, just like different.
it's a different
And that,
lifestyle. Yeah,
yeah, and that, but I do feel like maybe the people that stay at home, they do get threatened by if you make a different life choice than them,
right.
because they want to have a cognitive kind of confirmation that they made the right choice. Because
Ah,
if they made the wrong choice for them, um,
hmm,
like if things work out for you abroad and they think they also could have done it, then maybe they made the wrong
yeah.
choice. So
They feel
then the
they are
easy
missing out.
yeah, so then the easy way is to attack it, and that's what I do see. Like people are like especially like um I would say 2014, 2015, I had that a lot, where I would talk to people in Amsterdam at home when I was flying back, and they were like, Peter, this doesn't work, you cannot do this. Like,
Yeah,
people need community, you need roots, you need to be in one place. And remote work doesn't work. You need an office, you need
yeah,
people, colleagues and stuff, and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I mean, kind of, but also, I mean, all my friends were doing it differently, and it's
yeah.
going well. We're working remotely, or we're building companies, and it's it wasn't going extremely well, but we were making our own money from it, and it was going okay. And then now with COVID, everything changed because remote work is mainstream. Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky just tweeted like, "We're all gonna become digital nomads," and suddenly it's mainstream. And there's a certain vengeance aspect to that. Like, look, I was right, but also there's the realization, I think, that you should be open for different ideas, but you shouldn't think that your lifestyle or is better or their lifestyle is worse. I think it's good to respect everybody's lifestyle and I guess learn about it. And
What did your family say when you started this life of living the digital nomad? Like, they, first of all, did they want you to be an entrepreneur, full time an entrepreneur, or were they worried that like, okay, why don't you just get a job and get on with it?
yeah, I mean, dude, my parents are amazing. Like my mom and dad are like, now I realize more and more they're really amazing, because the only thing they always said was like, Pete, as long as you're happy, and I guess also don't hurt other people, then we're happy for you. Just do whatever makes you happy. And they never told me what to do.
Are they also entrepreneurs?
No, no. My dad's a doctor and my mom is a lawyer, but she didn't really work. She just raised kids. My dad always wanted to become a filmer. They grew up really poor, and this was after the war in World War II. So he was
Hmm.
born just after that, like 1948. And the city he was in, Rotterdam, was completely flat, bombed by the Germans, was gone, and it was the whole country was in ruins after the war, and everybody was poor. So my grandmother told my dad, like, my dad was like, I want to go to film school, I want to become a film director. And my grandmother was like, no, you're not going to become film director, you're going to become a doctor. So this was, I think you see this a lot with families in Asia also, where
Hmm.
the parents tell you what you need to become, doctor, lawyer, or something. So
I mean, everywhere. No, in Portugal it's the same. Everyone
yeah,
wants you to become a lawyer or a doctor because they make
yeah,
money,
exactly, yeah.
or a
It's a way,
politician.
or yeah, it's a way out, and So it was kind of sucked because he wanted to be, and he did a lot of film, and now he's retired and he studies film history and stuff, and he's doing a PhD in film history. Amazing, like uh,
Wow.
at
Do you think
70 or
you are an
something.
inspiration for him?
No, I think he's an inspiration for me, and my parents are, because um, he. Well, I know what you mean. He always told us to do whatever we wanted to do because he was forced to become doctor, right? And
Right.
that was a big lesson for me. Like, don't do necessary. I mean, this is also a point of luxury because if you grow up uh, middle class or upper middle class, then and Holland doesn't really have poverty. I mean, honestly, like the country has a lot of social welfare systems, so
Mm-hmm.
most of the country is middle class, which is really good. But my point is, like, I had the opportunity because like if I was his generation, my mom would have or my dad would have told me, like, you need to become a doctor or lawyer. So I was the second generation of that
Right.
cycle, and then you have the opportunity to become whatever you want. You can also become very lazy, I guess. But
So where did the inspiration come from to become an entrepreneur? Where were your idols?
man, so I come from music. Like I was first I was doing like graphic design when I was like 12 years old on the computer, like Photoshop stuff and art, like
Okay.
visual art. And I was in all these online communities. Like one was called Now Go Create. The other one was called Yay Hooray. I think Yay Hooray still exists. This was like early internet, like 2003 or something,
Yeah.
way back. And we'd always like download like illegal software. We download like Photoshop, like the Wares websites,
Mm-hmm.
and we download Photoshop. We download like other Premiere to make video, like After Effects. I made a lot of graphics like that, video graphics. I wanted to become really good at this art stuff, and then I went to a festival in my hometown, like annual festival, the Vierdaagse Feesten, for this big event we have. And there was a guy with a laptop in this little, like really small show. There was really big shows, music shows, all these really small shows. And this guy was doing like glitch music, like this IDM, intelligent dance music, like very pretentious term. Anyway, he had a laptop and he was making music. I was like, wow, I have a computer. So I went back around the stage kind of and I looked at his laptop, like which was the software. And then my brother was like, oh, that's Reason. So I downloaded this program, Reason. Of course, I downloaded it illegally. Didn't have money. And I started making music. And then first I made IDM and then I made drum and bass music. And then I started, DJing and my own songs in Holland. And I started doing my own shows and stuff. And I
Right.
even played in UK. I went on the radio in UK and on the BBC. I was playlisted with my music, and it was going really well. And but mostly I learned from the making my own CD because
So
everybody
making
wanted.
your own music, right? Like you didn't do
No,
remixes
I
or
made my
anything.
own
It was
music. Yeah, that was the special thing because most people just DJ. I made my own songs,
so that's what
and
I find really interesting already because I really love music as well. I'm not a musician, but I play the guitar and I actually making an album, but just for fun.
yeah,
But I find it as the ultimate creative art. Like I don't know, I feel that the same with coding. I started coding because I found a way to transform my ideas into reality with just a laptop. And it's kind of the same with the guitar. I mean, you can get your thoughts into a song that makes sense and touch people, and it's really a great way to explore your creativity. Is that
yeah.
why you like music so much too?
Well, I mean, my dad is also very creative, and he always supported us to make all this stuff on the like all the computer stuff was new, but he was smart enough to think like, okay, this is the future, so let these kids play in the computer a lot, make whatever they want. Like my brother made 3D models, 3D animation with 3D Studio Max back then, when he was like
Well, hmm.
teenager, and my other brother was doing more like hardware stuff, like electronics and stuff. But we were always like creating, and my dad and my mom always supported us to not go like we couldn't ask for like PlayStation or something, but we could ask for like painting tools or a guitar or something. Like they really, I think, purposely pushed us towards creative
Right.
tools to use. And I mean, I would do the same thing. And um but yeah, of course, music, but every expression of creativity is just pure and magical. And if it's visual art, graphic design, music, or writing, even, or websites, I think they're like entrepreneurship. I think this is the big thing people not in entrepreneurship and not in business, they really misunderstand. Like entrepreneurship is way closer to creativity and arts
Yeah.
than to corporate big business. Like I studied business and I studied corporate
Yeah.
stuff
You
in
did an
business
MBA,
administration.
right?
My bachelor's was like business administration, and my master's was entrepreneurship. So I learned kind of both things, and I think entrepreneurship is way closer to creativity and expression than to big corporate business, because business is about like wearing suits, and it's like management, and it's like
Yeah.
it's also interesting in its own way, but it's more like MBA theory comes from the military. Actually, it comes from 1950 U.S. military management
Mm-hmm.
theory, and entrepreneurship comes from creativity, from arts. It's completely
Right.
different, and
Yeah, and
people don't see.
I've been trying to find, with all the interviews I've done, I'm trying to kind of find what is an entrepreneur. What is the core of being an entrepreneur. And one thing that I've noticed is that most of the people I interviewed is they want to create their own thing, and they might be really happy with the company that they are working for, but the only problem that people normally find, and I say this all the time, is that it's not their company. Is no, and if you compare it with, let's say, an artist, a painter, I mean, you can clearly distinguish the difference between painting someone else's painting, right? Someone tells you to paint something, you just do it, or painting your own art.
Yeah,
And it's exactly the same for entrepreneur. I mean, you can have some fun working for others in the project that you believe in, but it's completely different than making your own company, right?
yeah, 100%. And I think a part of it has to do with autonomy. Like autonomy is a word we don't use enough. I think autonomy. My friend Jelmer de Boer, he's a Dutch writer, also kind of makes startups now, but he writes a lot about autonomy. And
Mm-hmm.
the concept is that having the power over your own decisions, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're like egoistic or something. It means that you have your own authority over your own decisions, and you choose.
Yeah.
And if you choose to do things for other people, that's also autonomy. You know what I mean? It's like it's not egoistic. It's more like you set
You
your
have the
own boundaries.
control. Yeah,
You
you
have
have
the
the control of
control.
your own life. Yeah,
Yeah,
somehow.
and of course, this all comes down to philosophy. Like this is a choice that probably has a lot to do with individualism,
Mm-hmm.
hyper individualism.
And psychology too, though, because I feel that there are people that are not comfortable with taking their own decisions so much, and they prefer, being guided. And then there's people that like the responsibility of taking their own lives in their own hands, or even like being a leader.
Well, I
That's
think
why.
it's. I mean, this is a controversial opinion, but if you look at kids, like when they grow up, how they're
Yeah.
playing like creatively with like their toys and their drawing, like every kid's drawing always, right? They're really creative and they're really autonomous and they are very excited about a lot of stuff. And I feel that the education system doesn't give you the
Hmm.
they I mean, many people say this, but they remove this autonomy and this creativity out of kids at a
Right.
very early age. Like, no, you did it wrong. No, that's not how you draw a tree.
Yeah.
But what if you draw a tree in a more interesting way? I mean, it's like you have to follow by the rules, and rules are, of course, they decimate creativity because
Hmm.
you know the best creativity is unbound. Is like, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah. I
and
mean,
yeah,
I think, yeah, we are definitely getting very philosophical here, but I would also argue that to live in a community, you need the leaders and the creators, and then you need the people that also kind of fall in line. So I don't know if this is not just a survival thing, when they say, no, this is not how we do it like this. And
I
then
think this is. Yeah, I think you make an assumption that I don't know if it's true necessarily, because you make an assumption based on this industrialist capitalist hierarchy of like a percentage of top leaders and then some followers and stuff. I don't think this is necessarily. It's just how we run things now. But if you look at the
Mhm.
future, this is not necessarily how we run things in the future. Like look at
Right.
the rise of crypto and decentralization and stuff, where and again autonomy over your own you know accounts, your money stuff, accounts that cannot get frozen. I think the trend is not towards hierarchy. The trend is towards that. more people have a voice. Look at like YouTubers now that get more views than media
Right.
channels. Media channels where
Is it more
hierarchy.
people that have a voice or different people that have a voice, right? I don't know, because now if you're a YouTuber, you can get a voice, and maybe before you couldn't, but still it doesn't mean that everyone can have a voice, because not everyone can become a YouTuber.
No, everybody can have a voice because everybody can upload a video on YouTube.
Right, but it doesn't mean that people will listen to it.
True, but you have to define what it means having a voice. Like before, you couldn't even get on the TV.
Right.
It was like it was a gatekeeper, and now it's all open. I think that's less
The
hierarchy.
potential is there, right?
Yeah, I mean, having people listen to what you say, that's never guaranteed. That shouldn't be guaranteed, but you should be able to have a voice. But yeah, I think we are going away from hierarchical structures, not towards it. I think that's and if you look at, I mean, of course, you're right. History is full of hierarchical structures. Like look before, look in the like 12th century or something, like the feudalism. People who own the land and rent it out and stuff. It's definitely of old time, I guess. You're right, but I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting topic. I totally agree with you, but I tend always to question everything and understand if the reason why we are doing it in a certain way, is it the right or wrong. But in the end, I mean, there's no right or wrong, right? So
yeah, it's an interesting topic. Yeah,
going back a little bit to entrepreneurship, even though I would speak about this for hours. You had your master's in business, but you also mentioned quite often that you learn most of your things by doing. And I'm very curious about what have you actually learned from your studies that it would be really hard for you to learn by just doing?
Great question. I think so. I did my bachelor's in business and my master's in entrepreneurship. And my bachelor's, I tweeted this whole MBA thread some years ago with everything I learned, all the theory and stuff. And business theory is interesting, but very limited because it's all these conceptual frameworks like Porter's 5 forces and stuff. It's like these people who like, okay, I think we should categorize things in this way, and you cannot test these things. This is social studies. You cannot test them scientifically like you can test with biology or chemistry. So it's all quite subjective, but I think, I think basic theory like Porter's 5 forces, like I think it's like barriers to entry, like be in a market with high barriers to entry, so it's hard for competitors to get in. You need to differentiate as a company, as a product. That kind of stuff is kind of interesting.
So these are concepts that you learn in your studies and are crucial for building your products as well.
I don't even think crucial. I think honestly, I don't. If I was 18, I wouldn't go to university. Like I wouldn't. I would just skip it now. And
really?
this was I mean different than 3 years ago, I think. But now things are changing so fast. Like I think the only reason to go to university is to show that you have the discipline to sit through like 4 years of coursework and write a master's thesis or something, or bachelor's thesis, and show that you have the discipline. I think it's a discipline test. But I just don't think the connection. I think the world's changing so fast now that there's no connection necessarily, especially with social studies like business. There's no connection with the current reality of the world and what you learn in school. It's just all outdated within, a month.
So you think you could have had the same success you had with your projects without going through your studies?
I think yes. When I talk with my dad about it, he's always like, "No, Pete, you learn a lot of integral academic fundamentals, blah blah." And I'm like, because he's really about this academic. But I'm like, I don't know, man.
It's hard now because you went through it, right? Like you would need to find examples of people that didn't go through it.
Well, I know from my peers, like it's always good to compare yourself to your peers, like my classmates and stuff. And most people didn't start a company, and most people just went to become employees and stuff. So, man, the amount of stuff I learned, like in the reality and practical from doing things in the last like 8 years, would be nothing bad against my university. I think it's just all universities, but something like 1,000 times more than the stuff I learned in university.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's an unpopular opinion, but yeah.
No, well, I totally agree. And in the end, a course is one person that decided that for you to be called an engineer, you need to study these subjects. But in reality, you need to learn much more. right? Or just different things. Depends also what kind of engineer you want to become and so on. But the
100%. And
basis,
yeah,
the basis, and you get the time also to go in depth into things that might not be super relevant, but it's also important to know, right? Like, let's say mathematics. You probably don't use mathematics in your daily business, but knowing it it's also important somehow, because it trains your mind to maybe think in a different way. You know what I
yeah. I
mean?
mean, obviously, like, yeah, like I had a lot of problems with mathematics because I'm not good at it. So I think I got kicked out of high school for my mathematics grades was too low, and I had to get back into university by doing all these tests for statistics and mathematics, and I studied all summer for months in the attic of my parents' house, just learning this math stuff. It was so difficult, but but then
Was it
honestly,
pointless?
no, it was just very difficult for me, and
Hmm.
like, dude, integrals, like
Yeah.
derivative formulas, and integrals are insane.
They are insane. Yeah.
You need to like, you need to take a formula and then expand it into what it was. Like, wow, it's so difficult. But I barely use that. Like, I
Hmm.
only like in my coding, I do plus, I sum formula variables, and
Right.
I mean, I do sometimes like statistical tests, but that's just easy stuff. You just search how it works. You install a library like p-test, t-test, and
Hmm.
stuff, significance. But I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
but
important
I
as well.
think again, it's more about discipline. It's like showing that you can go through it. I think the social part of university is very important, like meeting people, dating, going on dates and stuff,
Hmm.
parties. It's very important. It's extremely important, I think.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you're 18 now, like, and I keep meeting more and more of these people that are 18 and they just skip university and just go nomad. And I think I would do that. I would go nomad, uh, start businesses and stuff, try a lot of stuff. That's like the most exciting thing you can do now with your life, and it's probably right now it's probably as interesting and probably more interesting than university. I wouldn't say this 2 years ago, but things have changed rapidly.
I mean, yeah, I totally understand and I see your point. I also think that people shouldn't rush too much to start their own company. Just now, someone was talking with me on Twitter and asking, like, I'm 18, I need to start my company right now. Otherwise, I'm
Yeah,
losing
no,
time. I'm like,
no,
wait,
that's insane.
chill. There's so much to learn. And I mean, I don't think that there's a need for that stress, right? Just out of the bat.
No, but I think it's natural. Like, I had to stress like in my 20s, like, and it peaked at like 27 or something, where I just had mental breakdown. I mean, it's also why I started traveling, but like, just this stress of like, oh my god, I'm gonna be 30, I'm not successful, blah 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 blah. And
Yeah.
you know, I think becoming successful and then therapy helped a lot with that.
How do you deal with that? How do you deal with this, getting 30 and not being successful? Like, how did you overcome that?
It's so relative successful, right? Because like life is already great, but no, but I mean, when you're 27, 26, and you're from Holland, and you're like middle class kid, and your dream is to do startup and stuff, and then of course your definition of success is then getting a successful startup. But
Right.
um
But what is a successful startup? It's like a million? Is it
well,
100,000?
exactly, the definition is very vague, right? So that's why you also go into therapy. Like, what does that mean? What does it mean success for you? And
Is this something crucial that people should define before starting?
no, you just go with the flow. But I think it's natural that people in late 20s have these breakdowns.
Yeah.
It's everybody has it. Like, it's called Saturn return, where the planet Saturn returns to the same place it was when you were born. I mean, I don't believe in
Mhm.
astrology, but that's how they call it. And it usually happens after you graduate,
Interesting.
and you're like, wow, is this it? Is this my life? I have a job now. Is this it? Am I gonna, like, I'm almost 30, I'm gonna die, in 50 years. Is this what I'm gonna do? And after 30, you become much more chilled. At least I had that. And also with my business now doing well, it really helps to become more chill. And
Yeah.
like,
Interesting.
I don't need to impress people. I can be very autonomous. I'm much more relaxed. Like, I was very
Yeah.
not relaxed. at
I mean, it's
27.
still it's stupid stories of Facebook and so on, where people are like, "Oh, look at him! He created a unicorn with 22,"
Yeah,
and you only hear about this because it's the survivor bias, right? So you're like, "Oh my god, what am I doing?" Like these
yeah.
people are so famous.
Yeah, and the odds of you starting a billion dollar company are so small.
Yeah,
And but the
yeah.
odds of you starting, like, that's a good bridge towards indie, but like the odds of
Mm-hmm.
you starting $1 million company are very reasonable, you know.
Right.
Absolutely reasonable, absolutely possible. Because $1 million company, what does that mean? It means, 5 to 10x valuation of revenue. So
Mm-hmm.
$1 million, what's that? That's 200K or 100K a year. That's completely in reach, to
Right.
make
Right.
a little app or startup or product or website. So
I mean, okay, so let's get into that because you know it seems to be in reach because you see people doing it, but for me, a bootstrapper that started this seven months ago, and I'm making like less than $100 a month.
mm,
It seems very very far, and I was a software developer before, and I was making a good salary, especially in Germany, and now for me it seems impossible to get to this salary as a bootstrapper, even though it's like my purpose and I totally love it.
what were you making in
Yeah.
Germany before?
60K, right?
Yeah, that's a lot.
But
Yeah, tax high. But like that's also the problem, because the longer you wait, it's called golden handcuffs, right? The longer you wait, the higher your salary becomes, and the harder it is to leave. Because make it like when you quit and you make your own money, it's much harder to make 5K with your own business than to do it as an employee, right? So
right.
imagine you make 10K. It will take years to get to 10K with a startup, So
Hmm.
it just gets harder and harder to work for yourself. Yeah.
So, and this is actually one of the questions I had here. What should one do? Like, should you start something as a side gig and still have your job, or should you just like go all in?
No, I think 100% side gig. I mean, I did the same thing. So I did my music stuff, and then I started uploading it to YouTube, and I accidentally built a business there. I became like one of the biggest electronic music channels networks on YouTube back in 2008, 2009, 2010, because nobody else was uploading music on YouTube, and I was one of the first. And I got all the big DJs and artists on my channel in drum
Right.
and bass, house, and a lot of other genres. And
I mean, but if you're making music, then you were already an entrepreneur, right? Like, I mean,
well,
somehow.
the thing was, I was making money with YouTube because not just my own music, but also other artists came on. I was making money with ads. So my point is, like, I was making $1,000, $2,000, sometimes $8,000 per month, and
Mhm.
this gave me a side gig. This gave me a main gig, so I could do side gigs. So I could do
Right.
go travel after studying, because this YouTube channel was during my study days. And when I graduated, I was like, my friend Hasse, the guy from Korea, the Dutch guy, he was like, you can also do this remotely on the other side of the world. Why don't you go travel with your laptop and just make these YouTube
Mhm.
videos? Because you make money anyway. I'm like, cool, I'll do it. But the point was, I had money flowing in already, and that gave me like, you
Right.
know, it. I left in April 2013, went traveling, and the first money I made was August 2014 or something. So it took
Mhm.
like over a year
Yeah,
to
but
get to any money.
I think you definitely need to have some savings, right? Like, so that's what I've done. I got some savings. I'm actually getting unemployment money from Germany, which is amazing.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
It's really nice. So, but I still, quit any job. So I still add my savings. I have this money coming in, but I'm doing 100% because it's so much work. Like, it's so much things that you need to learn, so much things you need to try, that I cannot imagine how people can do this and still have like an 8 hours or 9 hours job on the side.
Yeah. I mean, that's life. Life is sacrifice, and entrepreneurship is sacrifice. So if you want to do entrepreneurship, you need to sacrifice a lot of things. Like,
Hmm.
this is the barrier to entry. If it would be easy to do it, everybody would be doing it. Everybody
Right.
would be successful at it. So it's I think entrepreneurship is one of the hardest things to do in life. I think it's this is maybe biased, but I think it comes close to like
Definitely in the
being a
professional life, I would say.
yeah, like being an Olympic professional athlete is also really hard, and I think it's very similar.
Mm.
It's it takes so much of you, especially in the beginning when things don't work, and it's emotionally so.
draining. Yeah,
exhausting, that
yeah,
nothing that you do works, nothing, and by the way, same with artists, like it's the same, again, it's the same thing. You make all this music and nobody likes it. It's like, for
I
years
mean,
nobody
for
likes
me,
it.
being an artist is being an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
It's
like that's,
very
again, it's
similar.
the same thing, right?
Yeah,
So, but all the other things, like a normal job, it's so different because it's not, well, it's exhausting in a very different way, but it's not exhausting in that, nobody pays you money. Like you immediately get, $2,000 a month, you get paid
yeah, yeah,
your
yeah,
salary from day
yeah.
one. It's so different, and that's why I'd say the earlier you can get into entrepreneurship or
Yeah.
becoming an artist or whatever, the better, because you
You
get
get
so
used to
used
it.
to,
Yeah.
golden handcuffs again,
Hmm.
and
Interesting. I didn't know
um,
that concept.
but I mean, not to judge your personal choices, but I would recommend other people to, not quit their job and go live on
Hmm.
savings. I would, because that gives you a limited runway. I
Yeah.
would, maybe work part time or something. And
Hmm.
I know it's hard, but and you need to sacrifice. So, when I did it, I was single. I didn't have a
Hmm.
girlfriend uh, much of the time. So I didn't have kids, for example. So my point is, like, there was a lot of time, like in university there was a lot of time
Right.
to work on stuff. For example, university is a great time to work on stuff because you barely need to be present at these classes. Like, I would
Yeah.
let my classmates sign for me so I didn't have to go to classes, and you have a lot of time to work on stuff. So
Yeah.
that, or having a main gig and then working on the side, I think is recommendable, because
Hmm.
you don't want to run out of money and then you have to go back, and it's just depressing.
Yeah. Definitely. And I'm kind of in that position as well, or I might be in the future that I will have to go back. But I still think it was worth it, to be honest. I've learned a lot, and not having a gig and having to rely on yourself only. I don't know.
Mm.
It's a different perspective. Like, I don't know if you ever heard this theory that the Vikings would burn their ships before
Yeah,
invading a new
exactly.
land.
Yeah, exactly.
And I understand it doesn't work for everyone, but if you have some savings, at least for me, it worked. I also obviously agree with what you have to say, and
Well, I
it
mean,
really
you have
depends
you
on.
have unemployment money. That's pretty much the main thing. You
Yeah,
have,
yeah, yeah. True, true,
how
true.
much is that? What you get?
It's a lot. It's 1,700.
Okay, perfect. Then you don't need main gig. Then you made the
True,
perfect
true,
choice.
true.
You don't need to go back. I mean,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
enough money to live on, and uh, also the nomad thing ties into this. Like, it is a really good trick is to use this freedom to go live in a cheap place. Like,
Mm-hmm.
move to somewhere where it's affordable. It could be in your own country. Move somewhere like more rural, small town, because most of the day you're going to sit inside anyway on your computer. So why do you need to live in Berlin or in Amsterdam, when you can live in
True,
somewhere
true,
small?
true, true, true.
You can save a lot. You can get, like, an Amsterdam rent would be probably 1,500 euros a month now, or
Amsterdam
maybe
is
2,000.
absurd. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absurd. But then a small town could maybe be 200, right? Or 300.
Wow,
So
it's a big
that would
difference.
that would 5x your runway. So you
Yeah.
could, or something. That kind of stuff is interesting, and that's also what I did with nomading. Like back then, I went to Chiang Mai, where I rented a hotel room with, like, I talked to the manager. I think I paid like 200 a month for a hotel room, just very small, with a bed, and the food was like, and it was like 50 cents or something for rice and chicken, or $1. And yeah, my spending
Yeah, yeah,
spending was quite low, and that gave me it gave me a lot of runway to work on stuff.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. If you get that possibility, I think it's totally worth it. And if you are willing to do it, I think some people might not be. But
Yeah, it's all sacrifice, man. Life is
yeah,
sacrifice. Like, you want one thing, you won't get the other thing.
going back to rebase, because it's also a bit connected with this, right? Like the possibility of helping people to move to different destinations.
Yeah.
So how did this idea came to be?
Yeah, so really interesting. So before COVID started, this was like December 2019, I was in Chiang Mai with like Daniel, John from Ghost. Daniel's my server guy, like Andre Asimov, the indie maker guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of my Mark from Batalist and Whip, like a lot of these kind of famous indie people, and a lot of my friends, and a lot of nomads, and we were all in Chiang Mai, um, and then COVID hit, and I think we flew to Malaysia, went to Penang, and we were in Penang, and COVID was in China, and it was starting to spread to Malaysia, to Thailand, and we didn't really understand, was this going to be big or small? Was this like nothing? People immediately started wearing masks in Asia. It was really good. And I asked Twitter, like, should I fly home? Like, what if this thing, because it went exponential, what if this thing gets worse in Asia? Maybe escape to Europe, right? And everyone's like, yeah, go to Europe now. So I flew home around, early February. And I went quarantine immediately. I went into the airport hotel in Amsterdam, and I went there for like 10 days. And everybody was laughing at me. Like, my parents were laughing at me. My friends were laughing at me. Like, why would you quarantine? Like, man, this was
you
before.
voluntarily, you didn't.
Yeah, this quarantine didn't exist. This was nothing. And we were on Telegram groups we knew everything. We were like, there was so much information that wasn't on mainstream. It took the delay from our Telegram groups about COVID and to the mainstream media was like 4 months. It was insane. Or 3 months.
Which groups are those?
Just like friend groups, and then there was like specific like COVID groups. Everybody already knew what was going to happen with COVID on Telegram in January 26th.
In Asia?
No, worldwide. We already knew what was going to happen. Yeah, because you could look at the statistics. It was already scientists studying everything. Anyway, my point is like back then nobody knew anything. So I flew back. I was in the quarantine hotel, and this is in the airport hotel, normally voluntarily quarantining. Then I went to my parents' house and I stayed there. I started buying food. I bought like €1,000 of food at the big supermarket because we didn't know if this was going to be a crazy pandemic killing everybody, or it was like, well, it turned out to be pretty bad, but still.
I did the same though. Did you also buy toilet paper?
No toilet paper. But I stocked up my food like something like February 2 or something, and my friends also did. And I was wearing a mask. There was a guy who coughed at me because I was wearing a mask, February 5 in the supermarket, because this was all before everything.
Dude, in Netherlands, it was really hard to convince people to wear a mask. I've been there.
Yes,
and no one was wearing a mask even in
it's horrible.
Public transportation. It's like,
no,
what is this?
Dutch people are a very interesting group of people. But it took 9 months for the Dutch CDC director, who's an idiot, to admit like, okay, masks work. Like he said, don't wear masks.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's skip to the stuff. So I was in Holland for like 6 months, close to my parents. It was also, I wanted to be near my parents because this COVID was especially more vulnerable to older people, right? So I wanted to be close in case something happened. And I was also just paranoid. I was scared that it would get to me as well. And then after 6 months, Mark and me left Holland. Mark was also back home. Mark from Whip, Battlelist, Indie Maker. And we went traveling. We went to Berlin and Prague because I was getting really depressed. I was feeling really anxious. I had a long-term relationship and she was in Korea and I was in Holland. And it was kind of like not going well because we were far apart and we ended up breaking up after. But it was all very depressing and psychologically exhausting. And for everybody, right? It was like the whole COVID lockdown stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So I started traveling with Mark, started feeling better again. And then on Nomad List, Lisbon was starting to rank really high. And so Mark and we were like, okay, let's fly to Portugal. And we ended up living there for like, I think 8 months or something.
Really?
From like September to April. And
in Lisbon, you lived in Lisbon city?
I lived in a coastal town in Ericeira. And but I was in Lisbon like many times because there was like Lisbon was bustling with a lot of cool people, and Ericeira was really chill because of COVID, because it was outside air. You could go for walks. Like Mark and me would go for walks a lot. It was kind of COVID safe and stuff, and it was in nature.
It is super nice. I really like it too.
Yeah, it's magical place. It was absolutely changed my life, that place. And the sunlight and the air, like we started looking so good in the mirror, like our skin was glowing, and there's something about, it's so healthy to live there. I don't know what it is, but the sea salt maybe, but we felt so good.
Yeah.
We invited friends over and they were the same. They came from this psychologically stressed, depressed vibe from COVID, and then being in Ericeira and going for walks and eating nice food, and seeing the ocean and surfing as well. And so we ended up there, and I kept talking to people like foreigners there also, like nomads, and they kept saying like, yeah, I'm now resident in Portugal. And I'm like, what does it mean? They're like, well, I moved here and there's a lot of benefits for foreigners to move here. And I was like, okay, interesting. But I wasn't really like that interested. But it kept coming up. And then I was looking for a place to live, like as a base, like also for taxes, because I have a company, but I also need to be like, if you're nomad, you cannot just, you need like a legal place to have a bank account, you
Right.
know, and to
Yeah.
like, yeah, spend money and stuff. And so I was like, okay, this kind of makes sense for me to register in Portugal.
This actually, a lot of people ask me this. So what is the best legal setup for a nomad? So you need to have a base and then you pay taxes in that country. Is that it?
Yeah, so it's really, I think you need to talk to a lawyer. It's really personal, your own situation. But the point is, if you live somewhere over 6 months, you need to pay tax there. That's the concept. That's the most important concept. So, and if you don't live anywhere over 6 months, then there's an international law that usually it falls back to your citizenship country.
Right.
So if you are, German and German citizen, which is different than resident. So citizen is where you're born, kind of where your passport is.
Right.
And resident is where you're registered.
Okay.
So if you're German citizen and you fly around the world and you live nowhere and everywhere, then generally you're still taxable in Germany because it's a kind of fallback rule.
Got it. Okay.
But if you move to Portugal and you're there, you register as a resident, you're still German citizen, but you register in Portugal. And generally, if you're there 6 months in a year, now you are a Portuguese resident and a Portuguese taxpayer, and Germany doesn't care anymore as long as you don't you're not making money in Germany. So this is very like a minefield. You need to really do it properly. And Portugal is very beneficial because it gives you a lot of benefits, tax benefits, but also they're very pro foreigner. The government wants to attract foreigners, so they're like waiting with open arms to attract foreigners. There's no tax on crypto right now. That's, for example, interesting.
Yeah, and one thing that I also didn't know: there's no tax on foreign income. Really? Like you can make money from outside Portugal, and then there's no tax on it?
So there's specific cases. So again, I'm not a lawyer, and that's why I cannot disclose any legal information about this stuff. But but there's you need to check your own personal situation. But there's specific cases where Portugal wants to attract foreigners that have, for example, retirement money, or they have savings, or they have foreign dividends, for example, which are then not taxed for 10 years. And the reason Portugal does this is because they want to attract foreigners to spend money in their country. So imagine you're Portugal, which has a brain drain, which is losing population every year now.
Yeah.
Like they just had the largest decrease in population in 50 years.
True.
Last year. So everybody's leaving Portugal, or a lot of people leaving Portugal, because there's not a lot of opportunities for Portuguese, and Portuguese companies, they don't pay a lot.
Paychecks are shit in Portugal.
I mean, the minimum wage or something, or the average wage is something like 700 euros a month.
Yeah.
If you look at the comparison with the rest of Europe, this is an East European country level.
Dude, like, I lived in Germany, and coming back to Portugal, that's the biggest pain for sure.
It's really bad, and there's a lot of reasons to go into why this is the case, but it comes down to that Portugal kind of needs foreigners, and the government has stated that repeatedly. And
so you realize that the government wanted foreigners. There were people setting up their base in Portugal, and then what did you decide to do? Did you try to say, okay, I want to do the same?
Yeah, so I set it up too, and I was really scared because I was like, this is going to be like a legal minefield. I got a lot of lawyers, immigration advisors, tax advisors to all go through my setup, and they were all like, yeah, this is legal, this is good. And then I kept getting people asking me like, hey, I also want to do this. I also want to register in Portugal. I want to move to Portugal. And I was like, interesting. Like, this is like, has a little bit to do with COVID, because it was hard to go to Bali. It was hard to go to Asia, to all those places where nomads normally go, like Thailand and Bali. It's hard to go there because COVID was, all the borders were closed, kind of. So a lot of people that usually go to Bali, Asia, Thailand, they would end up in Portugal. It's like a new kind of scene of nomads. So I was like, okay, maybe I can make like a type form and like try resell these services, or like refer my immigration advisors to these people that want it for like some money. I made this type form, got some customers, and then like in November, I made a whole landing page for it. And I launched it. Well, I accidentally launched it on Twitter. I just made a photo of my laptop on my bed working on it. And I wrote like POV, building an immigration as a service startup.
Oh,
and
yeah, I
it
saw
went
it,
viral,
yeah.
and everybody suddenly signed up, and there was 500 signups in a month. And
All right, so this is
yeah,
something that I really need to ask because for me it's amazing. So I understand the idea phase. So you identify a problem and a problem that you have yourself. So it's much easier for you to understand the problem and how to
yeah,
fix it and so on. And that's definitely a great way to bootstrap a project. But then the launching part is something that I don't fully understand because you had the same, for instance, with Digital Nomad, right? Or
Nomad List.
with
Yeah,
the
it was also
Nomad list, sorry,
accidental.
with
Yeah,
the Nomad list. You just decided to, my website then was up because of some Nginx config,
yes,
and
that's
suddenly I
right.
had thousands of people. I was like, no, that's not how it happens to me. Like for me, I will share it with thousands or like in Reddit everywhere, and I
Yeah.
don't get enough people. So, and I was reading your book, and I can see that you focus a lot on launching, and you say that launching is overlooked. So
Hmm.
what is that like? What is the difference between your launch and my launch? Why does it yours work so much better than mine?
Well, so people say like, oh, look, he already has followers, and I think it's true,
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't true in the beginning, and Nomad this also went viral. So I think it might have to do with the topic, like remote work and digital nomad stuff is kind of has been hot since 2014. It's a kind of exciting topic,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's this thing with like you have reality, you have things that are happening, and companies that are being made now, and then you have people's brain and their secrets and their inside of their brain, what they're actually thinking.
Right.
And you want to be in the time where a lot of people are secretly thinking the same thing,
Yeah.
but they're not saying or doing it yet.
How do you know?
Well, exactly. I have a lot of times where I'm in a group setting and I will be like, for example, you're meeting all these people and you're having dinner and stuff, but you're really tired. For example, you're like tired of walking
Mm-hmm.
all day, but nobody says that. Everybody's like kind of like, and then I say like, I think I'm really tired. Like maybe we should just like chill somewhere, or I should go sleep. And I was like, yeah, actually, me too. Like many times, this is a really bad example, but actually, like many times, I feel like I think things, and because I try to do radical honesty, I try to just say what I think.
Yeah.
It comes out, and then suddenly people are like, ah, yeah, I wanted to say the same thing, but I was like scared. It was like, too crazy or something.
Right.
And I think it's like moving to Portugal. I mean, it's kind of crazy in a way. Like, let's move to Portugal and register in Portugal and pay tax there. And with Nomadlist was same. Like, let's move to all these cities in the world and just go
Right.
live there for a while. It was like, so I think the trick is to, because with Nomadlist, I was observing that this was happening already. I was in Chiang Mai and I saw like 20 to 30, 40 people, 40 nomads there living there.
Right.
But it was very small. Now it's like thousands. But I was observing that people were already doing something and it was
Mm-hmm.
working for them, but they were not normal people. They were like a little bit weird people, like they were
Right.
strange. Like I'm strange, I think. And then you need to observe, like, you need to try, like, is this like fringe is the word, Fringe, like a
Okay.
fringe thing, like a new thing that's like kind of frowned upon, you know. And then many
This is
times
where
if you do some,
intuition comes in, right? I know that you kind of believe in intuition
yeah,
and
yeah, God, intuition, but like because many times when you think something, everybody else is thinking the same thing because we're all on the internet and we're all reading the same shit, and everybody watches porn, everybody does things we don't talk about, or reads articles, like actually we have a collective brain, and but people are limited by the constraints of acceptable society, right? Like you
right.
cannot just move to Portugal, it's outrageous, you shouldn't do that.
Right.
uh,
Yeah,
you
most
cannot go
people
nomad.
will think about it but say, okay, this is impossible. This
Yeah,
will never
like
happen.
man, I would love to move to Portugal, but it would be unacceptable because I have my friends here and I have
Hmm.
my job here. How would my boss react? My boss doesn't accept that I work remotely. All these things, right? So thinking what like there's this quote, like what people do on the weekends, or what
Yeah.
nerds or something do on the weekends, everybody else will be doing in the week 10 years later or something. I think
Yeah.
that's a quote. So like if you are doing something special and new, like there's a lot of examples of this, like indie games, like people that were making indie games like in 2010 or something, or and then it blew up. And but if you're doing this is the problem with also, like, I see in every scene, like music, startup, everything, people are always doing the same shit everybody else is doing, and it's gonna give you horrible results because you need to be on the edge of something new, you know?
Right. So you think that your edge when you're launching something is not really your technique of launching, is more the product and the audience that
No, I
you're
think it's the
launching to.
market. I think it's
The
you
market,
need to
yeah.
be tapped into the vein of people's brain, of
In the
people's.
exact right time as well, right?
Yeah, and obviously that goes wrong because I've launched over 70 projects, and they, only 3 or 4 or something worked out. So most of the times you're wrong, but you need to try. And sometimes you're like, because I didn't expect this rebase to blow up like this. Like now it's
Right.
getting like 400, 500 applicants per month, and then at this rate
Wow.
we will have 10% of the Portuguese immigration market. All people moving to Portugal, 10%.
You will have 10%. That's absurd.
Because like 50,
Yeah.
60,000 or 50,000 people move to Portugal a year. So it's crazy. So my point
Did
is,
the
like,
prime minister already reach out to you?
no, everybody asked me, but these governments are so hard to reach. But it's okay. I don't care.
There's
But
elections now. It could help. I don't know.
yeah. Well, I hope they don't change the rules. That would ruin my business. But
Yeah, true. That would be
but yeah,
stupid. That would be stupid.
TLDR. Most people are probably interesting and unique, but they again, the same thing with kids, that in the education system it removes their creativity. It's the same thing with people. Like if you say something crazy in your friend group, I had the same in Holland. I would say crazy stuff that I thought, and they're like, Peter, don't say that. What the fuck are you talking about? That's not normal thinking or
Acceptable.
something. Yeah, acceptable. And you need to let your brain think things,
Yeah.
because they are interesting and they might make great art. They might make great businesses. Think differently is the whole concept, right? Think different.
Don't be afraid of think differently. And if you take also another example, which is Elon Musk, right? And
Same,
and
yeah.
I know a lot of people that might not like it, but
No, I love Elon Musk, and I don't
yeah.
understand why people don't like this guy, because he's going to Mars. He's
Exactly.
bringing us.
So that's exactly it. So
It's a very, very, very strange zeitgeist now that people don't like Elon Musk. It's very strange, man. It disturbs me.
I mean, I think when you reach a certain point, you will always have haters. But my point is that he thinks, okay, how cool would it be to have a really nice electric car? And everyone's like, yeah, that's impossible. But he thinks, no, I mean, how cool would this be? Yeah, it's cool. Let's make it. How cool would it be to click in a button and move to Portugal? And everyone like, oh, this is impossible. No, like, it's super cool, right? Like, yes, then let's build it.
I mean, I didn't even know this was possible. So you need to, man, how you explain this? So you have all these immigration advisors, and they're doing everything like really like with emails and invoices and bank wires and stuff, and it's all really slow. And you need to have some assumption like, I think let's just do this through Stripe. Let's just do all the forms digital. Let's like you need to have some naive perception like that this is going to work out, and that these immigration advisors or something, the people you work with, are going to accept that you're doing all this stuff, because they live in a completely different reality. And it's just you need to jump in the pool and try, and it will probably not work out, and sometimes it does work out, but and that's also the thing with like people trying this indie startup stuff, is like they try once, they will like work on a project for a year, and then of course it doesn't work out because the odds are like 3% or 4% if you're doing really good.
You need to try multiple things.
You need to try it, man. Yeah. I think you need to try like 20, 30 times.
Yeah.
And
also one thing that, and from your book, we can really see this. You really know how to launch in each platform and how it works, how each platform works. Reddit is different than Hacker News and Product Hunt and so on. So I think it's also really crucial for people to study the platform before launching, understanding the people they are launching to. This is also,
so
people don't speak about
yeah.
it, but it's really crucial as well, right?
Like my biggest annoyance is people that are like thinking you can just like you can write a tweet and then you can post it on Instagram and you can post it on TikTok and you can post it on Reddit. This is bullshit. They're so different. Like something that works on Instagram doesn't work on Twitter, doesn't work on TikTok, doesn't work on,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
Reddit is completely anti-spam. So the only way to leverage Reddit is to give value, like to be a beneficial community member.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and then you might be able to get them to use your thing
Mhm.
and like asking for feedback, for example, or
Right.
but you cannot just come in with, look, I launched a startup. Nobody cares you launched a startup. Everyone's launched a startup. Nobody cares. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
interesting. It's annoying. It looks like spam. And
Yeah, it's funny because we live too much inside of our brain and we are selfish by design, right? So we think that we kind of all think that we are the center of the world somehow.
yeah,
And we all think like everyone will care that I launch a startup. But then now put yourself in the other person's shoes. Like if someone says, I just launched a startup, whatever, would you actually care? Would you click? I try to always do this exercise, but it's very hard.
this great exercise. The best thing you learn is like that. Like people who say, like, I meet a lot of those people, like, I'm gonna build $1 billion company, and
Yeah.
they're so confident of their own thing.
And
then
what is
they
the idea?
launch-
I'm not telling you the idea. It's
yeah,
secret.
that's stuff. Yeah, and then they launch, and it completely nobody cares, and
Yeah.
it barely goes. But this is good. This is a reality check because everybody thinks their shit is special, and it's not. You need
Yeah.
to get stuff out of the door. So your first project will fail probably, and your second also, and your third also. But this gives you a reality check that
Yeah.
what you make should actually be somewhat interesting, better, or cheaper, right?
Yeah.
You need a better product, or it needs to be cheaper product.
Yeah.
So
And can you now better distinguish if a product will or not succeed before starting it with your experience?
I focus a little bit more on like, not necessarily, but I like Rebase. I know it's a money opportunity. Like it could make a lot of money.
Right. So you start
then-
thinking about monetization immediately.
Well,
from the start,
also
somehow.
no, because I make enough money. Like now it's something like 2 to 3 million a year. So I don't. It's a crazy amount of money, by the way.
For you almost, right? Like there's no, you don't have a lot of expenses, right?
No, yeah, exactly. So it's insane money, and I barely
It's
spend
really-
it.
it's
It's
amazing.
all invested.
Dude, you should not say this.
Well, it's on the fucking Twitter, right? It's on
Yeah,
my
true.
It's open, so it's more like a challenge to make a cool new startup that
Yeah.
that works. But I also still make projects that don't have any monetization. Like I made airline list, like comparing
yeah,
airlines, hood maps also. But and recently I
Airline
made
list is fun because are you afraid of flying or not?
no, but well, I say a little bit. I'm not really super comfortable. I'm more comfortable. Like I know the odds of crash with flying is really low, but I'm more comfortable for my own like irrational fear if I'm in like the safest airline with the safest plane.
Yeah. I was super afraid, actually. Now I'm much better. I kind of overcame it. But when I was super afraid, having this filter, that you have in your website, like safe airlines, no crashes, would, just irrationally make me so much more comfortable.
Yeah, but it's so irrational because like I drive a motorbike here in Thailand and it's like 1 in 80 or something, you die. So, and then flying the worst airline, I think, is Nepal Airlines. And it's like 1 in 100,000. So
yeah, exactly.
And if I go on a motorbike, I'm not scared at all. So it's completely irrational. But it's nice to fly with like I don't know, like Singapore Airlines, Emirates, Qatar, with Airbus A350, Airbus A380 is great. Yeah, 737 Max. I mean, honestly, it's not great, and it's still
is that the one
plane.
with the crashes?
Yeah, and it's still like the plane doesn't fly without software. Like it. Like, I mean, Airbus planes also not, but this whole plane is wrongly designed for eco purposes. It's just not a good plane. And yeah, I don't think anybody should fly on it. So allegedly, I don't want to get sued.
So you build a website to kind of show the alternatives.
But like this website is not monetized. So I mean, like the monetization aspect is more like, I do think more about it in the concept of like serious companies like Rebase, for example. But I also think about the impact, right? Like now with Rebase, we have Venezuelan families. Venezuela is country's quite in ruins, and in terms of like the money and society and stuff.
Yeah,
and
man, I had a friend from there, and it's crazy. He told me he was robbed 18 times at gunpoint.
Yeah, it's insane.
How is
It's
it possible?
Yeah,
it's absurd. Yeah.
So it feels nice to be able to move people out of there, help them, and like that's I think I'm the most proud of in the last year or something. Like that, this product is I don't know. It sounds so cliche, right? It sounds so cheesy,
It's
but
not cliche. I think it
but
might be cliche, but it's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels really cool to like it's not about money anymore for me, but it feels really cool that this is a website that I made, like a PHP script. Index.php is saving people from Venezuela. Like,
it's amazing.
I don't know.
That's the
It's
beauty
super
of
cool,
tech, I would say. I totally
yeah,
agree.
I think this
Yeah.
because you could do so many bad things with tech, like look at Facebook, all this data stuff, but you can also do really good things. And yeah, it's just and you don't need, you can do it alone, solo on your laptop from the bed. That's what I do, and with coffee. And
Yeah.
I'm still doing it after 8 years, and you can change people's lives, and you can leave the world better than you found it. And that's also my mission.
Is that your mission? Yeah. Is that like your purpose somehow? Life purpose?
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah. I feel it sounds again so cliche. Like, I'm also not perfect. I also make mistakes, and I also, like, you can get rich, but then you die. You cannot bring your money into death. So it's all doesn't really make sense. It's not useful. Legacy is also not that useful, but I don't know. It's a nice purpose to have, to leave the world better than you found it, and that's
I
my role as a human.
totally agree with you, and it's the same. I wrote something similar in Indie Hackers recently, because that's also my purpose. Are you religious?
No, I guess I'm agnostic.
Right.
Like,
same,
my family's like, well, we're not practicing, but we grew up like Roman Catholic. And weirdly, I keep meeting a lot of Roman Catholic people, like even in Asia. Like the people the girlfriends I had were Roman Catholic, but not on purpose. And the friends I have, a lot of are Roman Catholic. And when Roman Catholic is like a minority in Christianity, most are Protestant, also in my country. So
I think
something with
is
Roman
Portugal
Catholic.
Roman Catholic? Do you know this?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it is,
so,
right?
Yeah. I think UK is Protestant, Holland's Protestant, but we were Roman Catholic. So, but I'm agnostic. Like, I don't know what there is after death. I probably believe in, like, that, because I did mushrooms, and also the things you learn, like that everybody's connected, and that maybe we're all one person and one consciousness, and
right.
I think that's probably true or something.
Wait, but now I didn't understand. You did mushrooms, and you came up with this.
I mean, that's kind of the feelings you have when you do, like, the feelings of connectedness. But I do feel the feelings of connectedness anyway. So I don't really need drugs to open up so much. But it's I don't know. We're all probably the same person. The same consciousness. That sounds logical to me.
It's a very interesting video about from Kurzgesagt. I don't know if you watch it on YouTube. And they have a video just about the theory that in the end we are all the same person. It's a very interesting theory. I've never.
Yeah, maybe, like,
think about it.
Maybe we're all one person, and that's God. And then you also get to the simulation theory, or like multidimensionalism.
Oh, I hate those. I don't want to speak about that. It freaks me out.
Where, like, there's like infinite dimensions with different realities, and man, and if you start thinking about it, it feels kind of lonely. You're like, oh, I'm in my own dimension, stuck now. And
Ricky Morty on Netflix?
It's
amazing. They explore exactly this. That everything becomes pointless because there's infinite use.
Exactly. Yeah.
But so you are agnostic, and you think that maybe there are some things, maybe there isn't. The reason why I ask is again, I also very similar, like Roman Catholic family, not they don't practice that much.
Yeah.
But I kind of slowly lost my connections with religion. And I think that, unfortunately, there's nothing after. I'm also agnostic, but I don't know. But, that just gives me more purpose of actually doing something that goes beyond, having money. Actually, doing a little contribution to the world is something that really motivates me. And it's not cliche. I think it's a great mission for life.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of cliches are just like true, I guess, because they're simple. And but I mean, you need to do something with this life. Like, you can sit in your room and do nothing.
Why? Why do you need to? You can also think.
I mean, it's all kind of like meaningless if you start thinking in that way. But I get happy from being active,
Yeah.
doing stuff. Like
Same.
also I go to the gym, for example, that makes me happy. I see friends. I like to be in a flow state where I work on things that makes me happy. And but everything is the same value. Everything is like, everything is valueless in a way, but maybe in a good way. It's all the same. Money doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like everything is, there's no better and worse. It's all nothing, because entropy will destroy everything in a billion years, and the sun will explode. So nothing matters, and everything you build up goes away. Every relationship you have, is not permanent. Everything dies, and
we are getting super dark.
No, but it's also really not dark, because that shows impermanence, and impermanence, if you accept that, it's quite beautiful, and you shouldn't fight it. You should just embrace it, and that's reality. And that's also, I guess, why people start living in the moment, because they realize impermanence. It's just like you're just like Eckhart Tolle is like power of now. That's it, just power of now. Like history doesn't exist, future doesn't exist, just now. Right. You're here now. I think Ramdas, the Buddhist or the yogi in India, says that, like, be here now. That's it. Power of now, be here now.
And is this also, do you think that this is the mentality that also helps you succeed, because it allows you to think outside of the box and say, okay, let's move to Portugal because I'm doing it now, or let's go to Thailand?
I'm thinking in a way, because if you cling to permanence and to things and to people, you cling to everything, you try to hold everything tight so you don't lose it. You're scared of loss, right?
Yeah.
Fear of loss. And that's really unhealthy, I think, because it's trying to give you certainty, right?
Right.
Like clinging to people, clinging to things, clinging to buying a house, clinging to all this. And it's essentially probably your fear of death, I think, which we all have. It's normal, but it's fighting impermanence. Like I'm gonna collect all this stuff and hoard it, because then I can keep it permanently forever.
Right.
But that's so moving to another place or nomad, you learn a lot about impermanence, because you cannot carry a lot of stuff. You have a backpack, you cannot buy a lot of stuff, right? So you
understand what is really important, right? Like this minimalist approach, right?
And impermanence, just like that and it gives you more flexibility to change up your life, I guess. And I also think it gives you a more healthy approach to relationships, because a lot of people are stuck in relationships or marriages which don't work anymore. And if you believe in abundance and impermanence, and you're okay, you're accept, like, okay, this relationship doesn't work anymore, it's fine, it's healthy to end this and to
I think people are also very afraid to leave their comfort zone. I think
the whole thing,
because you don't know what's in the other side, right? So okay, you leave your wife, and maybe you find another wife that is better,
or husband,
or you just can be lonely forever, right?
I think a lot of men and women after divorce at like 60 or 70 or 50 even, they also go nomad. You meet them and they have a very healthy mindset about this stuff. Like just like we just talked about, like this kind of impermanent mindset. And I'm not saying you like, of course you should be in a relationship as long as you can, of course, but the fear of loss is not a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. We are running out of time here, and I think we could definitely speak about it for a long time, and I think it's really interesting. I love to get more philosophical.
Next time we can do 3 hours.
Yes, we can do this.
Like Joe Rogan.
Exactly, Joe Rogan, just speak about everything. But I think there's a lot of things. We got to learn more about also your mindset, your philosophy. You gave some cool lessons for aspiring entrepreneurs as well. We end up not speaking that much about the effect of rebase in Portugal, which is something that is really interesting. So we could speak about this maybe in the next another session. As the last question, what are the technologies or markets that you are most excited about?
I'd say I do think the whole decentralized stuff is interesting, like crypto, Web3. I think most of it is bullshit, but I think there's definitely fundamental concepts that are really will be the future, like the decentralized concepts seem like censorship resistant stuff. Like look at social media posts being deleted everywhere and censored. Look at people's accounts being frozen and look at the overreaching arm of like countries like the United States that are just, they want to remove Russia from international banking via Swift and stuff. This is all not good, and it shouldn't be. There shouldn't be power like that existing. And I think it people, again, autonomy is a really big trend, I think, and this also has to do with decentralization. So I think definitely it will be interesting. I really think the technology is absolutely not there yet. Like Bitcoin is great, it works really well, but like the smart contracts are way too slow, too expensive and stuff.
Yeah.
But it is very interesting technology, and it will definitely only improve, I think. And there might be some bubbles and some bursts, but in 5-10 years, I think a lot of stuff will be decentralized.
Yeah, definitely. I'm also super excited to see what is going to come up from there. Peter, thank you so much for taking the time. I will link Rebase or I guess your Twitter profile in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time. It was really nice.
Thanks for having me, and see you next time for the 3-hour episode.
Yes. You heard him. There will be a next interview to go deeper into these philosophical and bootstrapping topics. If you are new to Want to Be Entrepreneur, this is the podcast about bootstrapping a company. I narrate my own journey and interview other entrepreneurs from all walks of life, all levels of scale, about their own journeys. And I've been learning a lot, and I'm sure that you will too. So make sure to go to wannabe-entrepreneur.com and check out all the other interviews and episodes I have for you. I don't do any advertisement, so if you want to support this podcast and you want it to continue, you can buy me a coffee. The link will be in the description, or you can join our virtual co-working space for bootstrappers, a place where we basically hang out. We are all entrepreneur friends, like-minded people, and we help each other build our own project. So I would love to see you there. It has a cost of €4 or $4.6 per month. Besides that, giving a great review, sharing this with your friends, it would really take this podcast a long way. This was another Wannabe Entrepreneur. See you next time.